Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. And as you can probably tell, I have no voice. So we're going to see how I go with this video. I had grand plans. I had about 6 videos I needed to film today and I just do not have the voice to do that, but I want to have some videos come out this week. Hopefully this will be video number 2 because I do have the Buzzwordathon vlog already filmed. I just have not been well enough, or we've had some family stuff happen in the last couple of weeks where I have no voice. It's so frustrating. But yes, we're going to try and get through at least one video, and hopefully maybe tomorrow when it's Sunday I'll have time and the capacity to actually start recording, because this was not on the cards for November. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 more romance books that I have read recently. I have a whole series of these. I read a lot of romance as well as other queer stories, but typically I group the romances together because I know lots of people like to find their romances, and that's totally fine. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Enticing the Elf by Louisa, which is the second book in the Elf Magic series, which is part of the Hidden Species world. So this is a big world with lots of little short series within it. This spin-off series is kind of the 4th one in that world. You could totally pick it up on its own, but the entire Hidden Species world is just really fun and delightfully silly and kind of sometimes idiots to lovers, in this case definitely idiots to lovers, but make it paranormal. And who doesn't love that kind of combo? So this is the story of Ian and Daithy, and I am probably completely mispronouncing those. I do need to go and listen to the audiobook at some point to get the pronunciation right. They are both elves who work for the paranormal government that sits alongside the human Earth government. Daithy is a very sassy elf who works as a secretary for this government. So he's kind of the first person that anyone sees. He's got great relationships with everyone, but if you get on his bad side or if you do something wrong, you better watch out because he has a very sharp personality. Eowyn is the head of security and he is head over heels for Daithy, and they've had this kind of friends with benefits kind of situation going on for a while. However, Eowyn wants more. He wants an actual relationship, but Daithy doesn't believe that Eowyn is ready to give up one-night stands and his playboy status, and so he's not ready to commit to a relationship because he doesn't think that Eowyn can commit. Eowyn is desperate to prove that he can, to the point where all of their friends who've been watching this go on and who are totally behind them becoming a couple get together and come up with the Summit of Love, which is a series of challenges that Eowyn has to complete in order to prove to Daithy that he is ready for commitment. The Summit of Love comes complete with slide decks, board meetings, and all sorts of hilarious shenanigans from the group that lovingly name themselves Team Bro. It is hilarious. The whole thing was just ridiculous, silly, and the best fun. Eowyn and Daithy are precious and they have my whole heart. The other thing that I love about this particular series is you have this little subplot with the demon hockey team, or a series of demon hockey teams who are trying to get support from the government. There is a little subplot in here around that as well. I just find this entire series, particularly the elf magic, perfect. Like, I need more. I need more because sometimes you just need something lighthearted. To be honest, I do have to go back and reread the series from the start. I just need something fun and light at the moment. Then I read The Wolf at Bay by Charlie Adhara, which is the second book in their Big Bad Wolf series. This follows a human who works for a federal agency. He was at one point an FBI agent, I believe, and now works for this federal agency that kind of tracks down and keeps tabs on the werewolf/supernatural community. In this particular book, Cooper is guilt-tripped back into going home. He doesn't like going home, so he's our human, and he ends up bringing Park, who is his partner, who also happens to be a werewolf. And in the first book we learned why there is a little bit of an unease between humans and werewolves, and Cooper and Park have, fallen for one another and are in this very tentative early relationship, and they end up going to Cooper's family home where a dead body is discovered in Cooper's family backyard. It throws doubt and questions on his family and the small town where he grew up in and the street where he grew up in, and Cooper and Park end up investigating exactly what happened, who the body belonged to, and how they died. I think when I talked about book 1 in the series earlier in the year, I was listening to it as an audiobook and I didn't remember as many details from the book. However, this time I'm reading it as an ebook and it has been a lot better in terms of me remembering a lot of the dynamics and the characters. This one I like because it's a very small setting. It's also a very intimate kind of murder investigation for Cooper because he begins to question the people that he knows and he loves. And I love seeing how werewolves fit into this world as well. So I'm very eager to continue. I definitely have book 3 already ready to read. And then we'll see how I go with continuing with the series. I also read The Lookout's Ghost by A. Knightley and I adored this book. It's the last of the paranormal romances in this list. Then I've got 2 contemporaries. So we are in the perspective of Reese, who is our human character. He is our point of view character for the whole book. At the start of the book, he's recently diagnosed with MS. He's broken up with his long-term partner who has been cheating on him. And to get away from it all, he has volunteered as a fire lookout tower person. I learned what that was through this book for the summer season, for the upcoming summer season in his hometown. Now he's expecting a fairly easy fire lookout position. He knows the guys that are running it, etc. However, because he is so experienced, he is assigned the most remote fire tower, and everyone's kind of worried about this, especially given his recent diagnosis, but he's actually kind of keen and happy to take it on and to just have some time to himself, to be in a place where he loves, and to do a job that he knows how to do really well. However, when he gets there, strange things begin happening, and then he meets Charlie, who is a ghost. And not only is he a ghost, he's the ghost of a man that people believed decades earlier was a serial killer killing hikers in these same woods. Now, spoiler alert, Charlie is not that serial killer. He is the most precious cinnamon roll of a character that you will ever meet, especially for a ghost. And he and Reese begin to connect and talk, and just, you know, Charlie hasn't had human contact for a long time, and Reese is just kind of very bewildered by the entire thing. But they get to know one another, and they actually begin to fall for one another, which, you know, challenging as a ghost. And then we kind of learn about how and why that connection is able to form. And I won't say why, because that's part of the story. However, alongside this, other hikers have started to go missing, just like they did when Charlie was the last person to man this fire lookout tower. And there are a whole host of characters who are invested in searching for these missing hikers. The truth about Charlie has to, you know, come out. This one was kind of cool because in the climax part of it, a bit like in The Wolf at Bay, Charlie begins to question the people that he knows, the people that he loves, as to whether or not they might be responsible for these missing hikers. I will say in this one, Content Warnings, I did talk about the cheating ex-partner, but there's murder violence, and some of this violence is perpetrated by bear traps. So if that's at all triggering for you, just be mindful of that. But I love this. I really, really did. Knightley, I've read now 2 books and a novella. I've got 1 more book to read from Kindle Unlimited. They're fantastic. They're just really solid paranormal romance stories. And then moving into some contemporary books. The book I'm going to talk about is Money Shot by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This is their most recent collaboration. It is the romance between a cam boy and his subscriber. We have Finn and Curtis. Finn has recently just moved to, I think it's Vancouver, it's definitely from the US to Canada, to follow his sister who has recently become engaged to someone. And he doesn't want his sister to move and be on her own. She's thrilled by this because they're really close. So it's not at all, you know, creepy, overbearing kind of thing. They're genuinely doing it because they're very close as siblings. And it's there that he meets her fiance's best friend, Curtis, who straight away he's like, you seem familiar. Like, I've never met you, but you seem familiar. And what we know from the introduction to Finn is that he has been a long-time subscriber to a cam guy called Gunnar, who does very sexy, very steamy sort of videos and things like that. And Finn recognizes that, you know, he and Gunnar don't have a relationship, but there's a connection and a safety in being able to see Gunnar's videos. And pretty quickly, Finn begins to realize that Curtis is most likely Gunnar. And I think it's because he happens to see a tattoo that he knows that Gunnar has. Then he begins to freak out because he's like, I know this guy. What do I do in this situation? And he sends Gunnar a message on the app, initially because he's like, I don't want to just unsubscribe. I've been subscribed for years. I don't want him to think that anything untoward bad has happened, but I don't know how to tell him that I know who he is. It's kind of a catfishing, well, it is a catfishing situation, but it's not in the sense that Finn is trying to get something out of the relationship with Gunnar. He just doesn't know how to say, hey, I know who you are. And so he has this parallel relationship with Gunnar and Curtis, and it's a mess, but it's resolved fairly quickly in the story because when that gets drawn out, that's a shocking thing. And he is able to articulate why he let it go on for as long as he did. And Curtis is able to talk Finn into a collaboration video with him. And even though Curtis is not really one for relationships, he's like, no, we can do this as a friends with benefits thing. If you want to be part of the collaboration, great. And they end up following through on that. And it's the development of their relationship from that point on, and how they work together, how they get to know one another, how Finn learns about why Curtis really does have commitment issues. It's very much a black cat golden retriever kind of situation. Finn is totally the golden retriever in this situation. But this is a really fun story. I mean, as with all Eden Finley and Saxon James stories, you have meddling siblings, you have really fantastic friendship groups. Gunnar is really shocked to discover that his friendship group know what he does because he's like never told them, and he's like, and then he finds out that they're subscribers. They don't necessarily watch his videos, but they're like, you're our friend, right? We're going to support you, etc. I love that element so much. It was really fun for the type of story it was, because I get really antsy in these situations because I don't love catfishing and it's a little bit awkward at times, but this one worked for me. And then lucky last, I have Heartsong by A.E. Wisp, which is part of the Vino and Veritas series that I've been reading this year. This is the story between Sean and Cooper. It's an age gap romance. This is probably the heaviest story in this particular list, which is odd given I've had stories with murder and ghosts and dead bodies and whatnot. Sean is 23. He's finally managed to get away from his hometown. He's staying temporarily with his uncle's best friend, who's a former military vet who was injured in a vehicle accident and is now an amputee. Cooper is 35, has dealt with the fact that he's been in an accident. He lives his life with a prosthetic leg. He's quite happy keeping to his own company. He's bought this old place that he's fixing up, and he's agreed to have Sean stay with him temporarily, and as part of, payment for staying with him while Sean is going to college, is that Sean is going to help him fix up the house. And it's a really lovely story about how they get to know one another. But as you get further into the story, you realize that Sean comes with a lot of baggage, particularly baggage where his dad had shipped him off to a conversion camp. And so he has a lot of internalized homophobia. And even though he's really keen to be in a relationship and to explore that side of himself, he's still dealing with the trauma of that camp and his parents' homophobia. So this one does deal with PTSD in that perspective. So be mindful if you do go into this one. It was heavy, but it was a really great story. Wasn't quite expecting the conversion camp story, but it does help Sean to then be able to confront the people in his life that he loves and say, hang on, you knew this happened and you never got me help for it. And he sees a way to move forward. And probably the age gap in this sense probably works better because you have Cooper, who is a very steady presence, who recognizes that something isn't right, even though he doesn't know the details, and is able to then support Sean in what he needs to do next. So a bit dramatic, but a good story. And so those are some of the last 5 romance books that I've read. I'm going to wrap this up quickly because my camera's about to tell me that I'm running out of battery and space. And also my voice is going. But in the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books. Are you planning on picking any of them up? Or if you have other suggestions for familiar titles, feel free to leave them down below. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a ghost emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy. And I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.